Hello everyone, welcome back to JDMods for another MR2 how-to video. So I'm in the process of rebuilding my car, and last summer I had an issue where my stereo stopped working, and the issue was very prominent because what would happen was I noticed every time I closed the driver's side of the left-hand door, the speakers would kind of crackle and then eventually they just stopped working. So if you notice something wrong with your stereo, specifically when you close the driver's door or maybe even go over a bump and it's not your head unit or your speakers, which I started with diagnosing first, take off your trim, and behind your trim on the left hand side, just inside that little pocket, there's two modules. They're the amplifiers for the stock stereo. Let me show you what they look like. This is the smaller of the two. I'm not quite sure what this one is, to be honest. This is what it says on it. I'm sure I could Google it and find out. But I do not think this one was giving me any grief, so I didn't bother looking into it too much. The one that was giving me grief was the bigger one, which the cover looks like this on it. And essentially, I've already taken it apart, so I guess I'll show you guys putting it back together. And the removal is the opposite of putting it back together, of course. I've taken out all the circuit boards, and on the main circuit board, there's three large capacitors. They're 2200 microfarad capacitors. I'm not an electrical guy, so I don't know too much of the lingo. They're 16 volt rated, and they're about this big. And I noticed that when I shook this unit, it rattled, which is probably indicative of something not working. So anyway, it turned out that the capacitor on the right here was completely broken off of the leads and just kind of like sitting in that little hole. So I desoldered it from the board, watched some videos on how to do that. It's pretty simple. I picked myself up a low watt iron so you don't break the circuit board components. And then I got these from DigiKey. Great website for electrical components. They're about $3 each, like 2-day shipping, very cheap shipping as well. So if you've never installed a capacitor before, it does matter the polarity. So the side marked with the stripe, in this case it's gold, is the negative, I believe. So you can see on the circuit board, excuse the filming, you can see on the circuit board there's like your white dot and the negative on the left hole there. So that's where the gold lines up with, and you can tell just by looking at the other one, looks just like that, and they all look like this right there. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and solder this into the board, and then I'll show you putting it back together. That's how it looks with the capacitor successfully installed. I might not recommend this as a first soldering project. You can see the lead on the right is very close to that nearby wire bridge thing. But I used a voltmeter to make sure they weren't touching. Then I cut the leads off. So there's our new capacitor. So now we have to put it back together, and don't put away your solder gun quite yet. So first, this board goes in this little casing. Of course, remembering that the reversal is the opposite for removal. So there's all these little tabs sticking up. I've straightened them all out because they will be fitting inside of those slots, and the two holes go over these two pegs at the front. Sorry if it's kind of confusing. It makes sense when it's in front of you. I'm going to do this off camera. That's what it looks like with all these slots through the holes in the circuit board. Sorry about the glare again. But as you can see right now, they're flush. And then what you do is just grab some pliers of some sort. And then you just want to bend the end of it while holding the circuit board. And twist it sideways just a little bit so that the circuit board can't fall out. And then you just add some solder as if it was a normal electrical connection. So let's do that to all of them. It's not beautiful, but they are done. I tried my best to do a good job because I do believe they are grounding points for the circuit board from the shell. So the next step, I believe, it's been a few days since I took this apart, is to get these big heat sinks on the side. They go underneath these black components, just like that. And then there's these small plates that go on top. So you screw the plates into these 2 screw holes. And then from the side, there's 2 screws per upright circuit board to go into both heat sinks. So I guess a total of 8 screws, and then those will be on. There's also 4 bolts at the end of the heat sinks looking this way that you have to install. And then that's the heat sinks completely installed. And now we can install the second circuit board that actually goes on top of the first one. So you can see there's all these prongs sticking out. There's one that's bigger than the other one. So that's how you know the orientation. The big one goes on the left-hand side. It's fairly obvious, but it just goes just like this. Line those up, and you can also line up these sticking out metal pieces with the slots in the circuit board. So go ahead and install that, and there's 2 screws, one here and one over here. There's all the tricky stuff done. You can see I also bent those 2 tabs over, but there's no soldering required. And now the last step are your covers and your mounts. So this one has the rubber on the inside, so it goes on the side with the more exposed circuit board, I would say, this one here. You just kind of click it in place right there. And then there's a screw at the back. It goes behind that panel there, just like that. There's screws on each side of those connectors, 2 per connector. And then there's your mounting brackets that go on the sides once it's all assembled. And I'll show you what it looks like fully assembled. There it is, fully assembled. As I figured, both the covers and the brackets are polka yoked, so you can only assemble them in one direction and in the right location. So now let's go ahead and toss it back on the MR2, and I'll show you exactly where it came from. There's the location of the smaller electrical unit installed, and then the larger one, you can kind of see it right there. Just behind that middle beam. You have to take the speaker out to get to it for sure. And that's how the wiring is routed, I believe. You would also have a seatbelt thing right in front of that smaller one. I don't, because I'm taking my car apart. But that is how you fix the amplifier issue on a Toyota MR2. If you're watching this video, it's probably because it ended up working. If you want to see more how-to videos and other videos of the MR2 and lots of other cool cars, please subscribe to this video, and thanks for watching.